He walked into the dimly lit facility, his boots clicking on the cold concrete floor. The air was thick, with a sterile, metallic scent, and the shadows seemed to creep along the walls like they had a life of their own. A man like him wasn't supposed to feel nervous. He had dealt with mercenaries, assassins, and weapons dealers before. But something about this place made his gut churn with unease. He had come for a weapon, a tool of unimaginable power, something that would make him unstoppable in his line of work. The door to the chamber slammed shut behind him with a deafening clang, sealing him inside. He glanced around, only to see a figure step forward from the shadows. The voice that followed was soft, almost too calm. "You came for a weapon. But what if I told you we have something stronger?" He couldn't help but tilt his head. A weapon stronger than anything he had seen before? That was a tall claim, even for a place like this. The figure gestured for him to follow, leading him down a narrow corridor lined with high-tech security doors. He walked through the sterile halls, his footsteps echoing. They came to a stop before a massive steel door. The figure typed in a code, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, there was no typical weapon. No gun, no blade, no mechanical monstrosity that could be unleashed with the press of a button. Instead, what lay behind the bars of a cage was a girl. Her eyes were hidden behind a metal mask, a strange head cage that completely covered her face. She stood still, her posture tense, but there was something about her that was unlike anything he had ever seen. The cold, clinical nature of the room felt even more pronounced now that she was there. A weapon, but one so different from the ones he knew. "You came for a weapon. Instead, we offer you her." The voice behind him spoke again. He turned to face the person who had brought him here, still trying to process what he was looking at. "She's stronger than steel," the figure continued. "Her power lies beyond anything you can imagine. But she's bound. That cage keeps her contained. Never remove it." The man stared at the girl, his mind racing. He had been prepared for anything. A bomb, a battle droid, perhaps even a human weapon enhanced by technology. But this was something else entirely. He couldn't comprehend it. His first instinct was to walk away, to ignore the strange offer in front of him. But deep down, something tugged at him. He couldn't ignore the potential, the temptation to own a force that powerful. The figure turned away, leaving him alone with the girl. The silence in the room felt heavy, almost suffocating. She was still, her body stiff, her breath shallow. But something about her presence made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Her strength wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, more profound. "What are you?" he muttered under his breath, though he knew she couldn't hear him. Her cage held her, but even then, he could feel her energy radiating. There was something dangerous about it, something wild. The figure returned moments later, as if reading his mind. "Her name is not important. Her purpose is. She was created to be the ultimate weapon, stronger than any soldier, faster than any machine. We've perfected her." He smiled as if he were talking about a prized possession. "And you, my friend, have the opportunity to own her." The man couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had come for power, for something that could make him invincible. But this was not a typical weapon. This was a living, breathing human being. Someone who had been engineered, controlled, and turned into a weapon. He could feel the moral conflict inside him, the hesitation. The scientist continued to speak, his words laced with persuasive logic. "We've controlled her for years. The head cage prevents her from unleashing her true potential. But once it is removed, she will be yours, completely. She is the strongest thing you could ever possess." The man's gaze never left the girl. She was still trapped inside the cage, her posture straight, but seemingly vacant. He wondered if she even knew what freedom was, or if she would even care when it came. She had been created for one purpose, and one purpose alone: to be a weapon. But could he justify using her for that? What kind of person would he be if he unleashed such power for his own gain? "Buy her," the figure said again. "Stronger than any weapon you've ever seen. Never remove the cage, and she'll be the most powerful asset in your arsenal." The man's thoughts were spinning. He knew the deal. He knew what it meant to take control of such a power. But at what cost? She wasn't just a weapon. She was a person. And if he decided to take her, he would not just own her strength, he would own her entire existence. The weight of the decision began to press down on him, and he didn't know how to carry it. He needed more information. He needed to understand what had been done to her, how she had come to be this way. The man asked the scientist about her past, about what had turned this girl into a weapon. The answers came slowly, almost reluctantly. She had been engineered, altered, and trained. Her mind had been conditioned to endure immense pain, to withstand things no human should ever experience. She had no real memories of her life before the cage. All she knew was that she was born to be a weapon. As the scientist spoke, the man couldn't help but feel a pang of pity for the girl. She had never known freedom, never known a life outside of the cage. She had been raised as a tool, a living weapon, and her entire existence had been dictated by others. He wondered what would happen if she were freed. Could she ever be more than just a weapon? Or would she be lost to the world, unable to function outside of her role? The scientist led him into another chamber, where the girl was briefly released from her cage. The demonstration was brief, but it was enough to show the man just how powerful she was. With a single punch, the girl shattered a steel beam, and with another, she cracked the concrete floor beneath her feet. Her power was incredible, unmatched by any human or machine. But as the man watched, he realized that the girl wasn't just a force of nature. She was a victim. Her power had been forced upon her. She was more than just a tool. The man's decision weighed heavily on him. He had come for a weapon, and now he was being offered something far more complex. This wasn't just about power. It was about ownership, about control. And yet he knew that taking her would not be simple. The moment that cage was removed, there would be no going back. She would be free. But what would she do with that freedom? The man left the chamber and wandered through the facility, the weight of his choice pressing on him. He thought about the girl, about her strength, her power. But most of all, he thought about the consequences of unleashing that power. Could he control her? Could anyone? Finally, he made up his mind. He would buy her. He would take her and control her. He had seen enough to know that he couldn't walk away from such an opportunity. The scientist led him back to the cage. The deal was struck, and the girl was handed over to him. Her cage was removed, and in that instant, her power was released. The man stood there, feeling a strange mixture of awe and fear. The girl's eyes were now open, bright, unyielding, and full of emotion. But as he looked into her eyes, the man realized that she was no longer just a weapon. She was free, and she would never be his to control.